Welcome to the Moser on Manufacturing podcast, brought to you by Jacket Media Co. And now, your host, Harry Moser.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Lew Weiss from Manufacturing Talk Radio. I'm sitting here with one of my favorite guys, Harry Moser, who is the president and founder of Reshoring Initiative. And Harry is one of our regulars. He's on every month. And I would read his bio, but I only have 30 minutes. So I'll just give you a couple of things. Harry's been in Industry Week magazine, Hall of Fame. He was at the White House during the Obama administration talking about something about reshoring. We have, you do 100 presentations a year?
70 to 100.
Really?
I do 12 for you. That's a good start.
The reason why you do 12 for me is because the pay is good.
Yeah.
Let's see, you've been on C-SPAN, CBS, NPR, USA Today. I got 4 pages of your bio here. I'm not doing it, Harry. I'm not doing it. All right, folks, today we're going to be talking about rebuilding and reshoring and collaboration partnerships between people, companies, and countries. Harry, kick it off.
Okay. I think the logic of this is that there's a lot of things you can't do on your own. Even Elon Musk, he's got a team now of, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of people getting the job done. By himself, he can't make 1 million cars a year. So and he's got other companies, I think, working with him on the batteries, and he's got, so to even the best manufacturing people can't do it on their own. And the US as a country has shown that it can't do it anymore on its own, that the manufacturing has declined so much here, lost 5 or 6 million jobs just to offshoring. And so it's time for the country, for companies, for people, for companies, to get together and certainly fight for their own, do the absolute best they can, but in many cases see that working together, they can all come out ahead.
One of the greatest stories that we had, and we had these people on our podcast, 2 companies in New Hampshire were manufacturing companies, and that's not a big employment pool up there. And when COVID began, they started really having some serious problems. And one company went to the other company and said, look, why don't we join together? You need people, I need people. Let's put together a training program. And I'll volunteer some of my people and some of my equipment. You volunteer some of yours and so on. And then let's do a campaign to get people from out of state to come to New Hampshire. The only proviso was that when they do this, that they promise not to steal each other's employees. And they did it, and it was great. And then it started that there were a lot more people that heard about it that started coming to Vermont, and they're now very successful. They have no shortage of people, and it's all because they partnered.
The other thing I'd be concerned about if I were the business about not hiring each other's employees, the government might get on you for that because that's restraint of trade. So I'd be careful about that one aspect of it. In a somewhat similar vein, there's a group in Charleston, North Carolina, and no, Charlotte. I think it's in Charlotte, and they maybe 10 companies ranging from a relatively small mold maker up to a big, 20,000 employee company. And they started an apprentice program, Apprenticeship 2000. And they collectively go to the high school and say, here's 10 companies that are looking for people. There are all kinds of different, mold making, electrician, all kinds of stuff. And they recruit the kids in. The kids maybe move around for a couple months at each company. The companies pick one of the students. The student picks a company. and the company that I know best down there, I think it's Scott Rotman runs, mold maker, and based on this process, last time I talked to him, the average age of the employees in his mold making shop was 32.
Wow.
And
And
what's the average age of your employees? Probably 50 or something like that.
maybe higher.
So it's
I
a
think
really
I throw the average off.
Yeah. Anyway, so some of the kinds of partnerships, again, you can't do it by yourselves. For example, companies, what we want them to do is reshore and bring back 5 million jobs, balance the trade deficit. But consumers can help. They can seek U.S. products, be willing to pay a little more. I mean, not 50% more, but maybe 15% more for a good quality U.S. product. The retailer can make it easy to find the US product. And if you come into a store and you're looking for a piece of clothing or a tool, and you have to turn over 50 of them to find one made in the United States, nobody's going to do it. They're going to buy the first cheap thing that they find, even if it says made in China.
Right.
For OEMs, work with your suppliers. I'm pretty sure, and I've heard this repeatedly, that the Japanese automakers in the US have a higher made in USA content than the US brands do, because they've grown up with the lean Deming kind of belief that it's better to simplify your supply chain, have your suppliers close to your assembly plant, and they implement that when they get here. Now, some of it's made by foreign, like Japanese or German companies that come over and build a factory next to their assembly plant, but it's still manufacturing jobs in the United States. So I think there's a lot of ways that each of us can work with the other for the good of the society, the country.
In regards to partnering, I mean, one of the problems that this country has right now, amongst all 10,000 of them, is that our birth rate is down and is not going to get better.
You could get back with it, Lou. Have a couple more kids.
No, no, I'm not doing that.
Stop complaining.
I don't want to start changing diapers at 80. No, I don't want to do that. I didn't do it when I was 30, so I'm not doing it at 80. I lost my point, but immigration is a great way to help bring manufacturing people to this country, and making deals with companies, letting immigration come in, train them, have the government do what they should be doing, and is creating training programs and of all types of manufacturing, which they're not doing. They're too busy fighting each other. It's a horrible situation. Frankly, I can't wait for November 9th for all the TV political commercials to be off television and off my emails.
But they'll start again getting ready for 2024.
That'll be the big one.
I'm 100% in agreement with you on the skilled workforce. The immigration, we tend to, as a country, let hundreds of thousands or millions of unskilled people come in across the border, however, and we restrict the skilled who would fly in and check in through immigration and be a legal immigrant, paying taxes, Social Security, doing the whole thing, and Canada does a much better job. Their arms are much more open for that skilled workforce, and it's like if you ask an economist, how do you get the GDP to grow? They say there's really two factors. There's the working workforce, the size of the workforce, number of people working, and productivity. And if you want to increase the GDP, you got to increase one, the other, or both. And there's a tight connection between the two, because if you don't have skilled workforce, then it's hard to get the productivity. So it's real obvious. I agree with you 100% on the immigration issue.
So why is China not issuing their GDP? They get lots of people. They got
Yeah,
lots of
well,
productivity.
yeah. Actually, their productivity reports say that it's gone up very nicely, much faster than ours, like 6% a year versus 0.5% here. They've done well on that, but their workforce, their population is dropping by millions a year, and the workforce, like the age of 20 to 60 or something like that, I think I read was dropping by 3 million a year, and so they're going to shrink. No, they're going to shrink, and that demographic wave, I think, gets worse because there were for 38 or 40 years they've had the one child policy either legally or practically because their people don't want to have two kids because they can't afford it.
Right.
So they don't do it. We've got to be smart enough to bring in the best around the world and make the country strong enough so we can afford to bring in you're tired, you're hungry and poor or whatever it is, but you can't afford them unless you've got the other ones working here being productive.
That's correct. That's correct.
Let me throw just another idea in on
Sure.
cooperation and partnership. One thing I've toyed with and haven't had time to really do is to aggregate demand to help your suppliers commit to expansion. So I've had a bunch of companies come to me and say, Harry, I need uh, castings for machine tool bases, 1,000 pounds, something like that. Yeah, and they've gone to every foundry that has that size capacity, and they say none of them have capacity. They're all flat out. They can't do it. And I can understand that when each company comes to them. But what I'd love to do is bring together 4 or 5 companies that want essentially the same kind of castings, and bring together whatever, $20 million a year or $30 million a year versus guaranteed business that would be enough to convince one foundry to build a new foundry and take on all that.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So if anybody out there has any ideas on that, if they have a product that they think there's enough demand here, and that if we brought 3, 4, 5 companies together with their demand, we could convince one supplier who can't expand, who isn't going to spend $20 million to expand for one customer, but might if they had guarantees from 5 customers. So anybody interested in that, get in touch with me. It'd
Give us your
be
email,
wonderful.
Harry.
Okay, Harry.Moser, Moser, at reshorenow.org.
Okay. I'm sure you're going to get flooded.
I hope so. By the way, I have a house down in Sarasota, Florida, and we did not get flooded.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Lost electricity for a day or two, a couple of palm fronds down, but other than that, just fine.
So what happens to the house when you're up in Chicago?
It gets air conditioned.
Well, maybe you need to have somebody in show business come in and rent the place for a month.
I see. Okay, and that would be, and they'd actually pay me, and they could say that they were also paying me for doing the broadcast.
We can lie about both.
We can talk about that.
Harry, Europe right now is in not great shape on so many counts. Yeah, we got the war in Ukraine. We got the Russians doing their thing. The economy is crazy there. Prime Minister Truss resigned after 6 weeks yesterday. We may wind up getting, what's his name?
Boris Johnson.
Yeah, Boris back. Yeah, he thinks that he's really coming back, but so does our former president. But so how could Europe partner? It's a good idea that you've got partnering, but you got Germany, who is the leader of the pack, so to speak, but they've got their problems. England is in the toilet financially. France, you don't even hear about anymore. Give us some insight on that.
Yeah, Germany is the one I know the most about, and they're, I think, in the biggest energy problem, both because they're big and they're probably the most dependent on Russia, especially for natural gas, and they consume huge amounts of natural gas because they have very large petrochemical factories there that take natural gas and convert it into polyethylene, polypropylene, plastic, ammonia, fertilizer, et cetera, et cetera. So,
Right.
so there's big companies over there, big time international companies that know that they're not going to get what they need this winter. And if they do get it, the price is going to be 8 times as high as here.
Woo.
8 times as high. And this is your raw material, which probably represents maybe the cost of the raw material equals, who knows, a third of your selling price. So, or something
Yeah,
third, a
right.
half,
Right.
something like that. Because it just goes through, there's not much hands touching it. And so a lot of them are looking at putting refineries in the US because here the natural gas is plentiful, the price is still pretty reasonable. In fact, I was just seeing on CNBC that the price of natural gas here in the last, I don't know, 6 months has fallen from $10 per whatever to $5. So it's back to more or less the traditional level. And
Right.
while it's still way elevated over in Europe. So what are we doing in terms of partnership? First, we'd be happy to have them build their factories here,
Of
but
course.
second, in the meantime, the US has put a big emphasis on LNG, shipping natural gas over to Europe, to Germany, so that they can survive despite what Putin has done.
There's a fairly new technology that's come about. You don't hear a whole lot about it, but I've kind of taken on a kind of a special interest on this, and that's wave technology. And Europe is probably the biggest on that right now. And the United States is coming along. Matter of fact, I just did some research the other day. There are 64 companies here in the United States that are involved with research and development and design and concept about wave technology. And it's really quite fascinating that what it is putting turbines a couple of 100 feet below the surface of the water under the waves, which we always have. It's not like the sun, it's a cloudy day, you have no power. There's always waves. As long as we have a moon, we'll have waves. That said, the 20% of, I'm not sure which country it is, it's either Sweden or Norway, 20% of their power for residential use is coming from wave technology. And it's a pretty interesting concept, and it's renewable. And we don't have to dig holes, and we don't have to, a lot of things we don't do. So a lot of companies in Europe are quote unquote partnering in developing this because, it's pretty much surrounded by water, and they can store and transport the electricity at a fairly low cost. They need to do more of it so that they can have more people and lower cost to create this. But I don't understand why we're not really big in it. We're not hearing about it. We're not hearing about desalination. We're not partnering. We should be partnering with Israel about how to generate desalination plants.
Now, one reason perhaps is that the US, from what I've read, is tending towards solar and less, specifically offshore wind is in decline. It's not coming on as much as it used to be. So solar seems like the winner now. And Northern Europe does not get a lot of sun. There's a lot of gray, cloudy days.
Right.
And like you say, and they've got a lot of water around them. Now, I'm here in Maine right now, and I can see water outside my window, and down in Florida I can see water. So we're ready. Anybody that's got a home unit that we can put in, let me know.
Have you been at all involved in the wave technology?
No, I've read about it once in a while, but I haven't done anything. But it sounds like the kind of product that the U.S. certainly should be able to make. And
But
then
we make turbines.
Yeah, and
That's
so
what it is.
we make wind turbines, we make all kinds of stuff,
Right.
GE turbines. So no question we could do it, and if we can do it and get electricity. We don't have to burn as much oil and gas. That's wonderful because our kids and our grandchildren will then have oil and gas
Yeah,
when they
of course,
need it.
of course. Actually, there is one underwater wave turbine here in the East River in New York. And they've been testing it now for a couple of years. And about every 6 months or so, they got to bring it up because of all the underwater stuff that bangs into it. You know, cars,
Bodies,
telephone
bodies.
pole bodies. Uh, so they got to keep bringing it up. So that was probably a bad test area to do it. They should have done it really in the Hudson River, which is partly owned by New Jersey. So I guess that's why they didn't do that. But I think that this is a very, very good, important, potentially inexpensive, efficient method that we all as a globe should be partnering.
It makes sense to me. If you've got anything on it, send me and I'll read it.
I'll be happy to.
Okay. So let me talk about international. We were talking about
Yeah,
immigration before.
yeah.
You know, one concern I've had with partnerships in the past has been that the U.S. as the dominant country since the Second World War, you took on a mission to get everybody, all the developing poor countries into the middle class, to have democracy everywhere, in the belief that if we did that, that it would be peace forever and good times forever. And as a result, we gave up our advantages to help them. So countries would come up and we'd give them most favored nation status, which means zero or minimal duties, while they kept hitting us with 4, 5, 6, 8% duties. But we were doing that because we were the big guy. We were shoulders were broad enough. We could help them along. Like China still has most favored nation status. Now that's insane. And we're putting tariffs on their stuff, and yet we're giving them duties, the regular duties we've taken way down here. And Russia just came off of most favored nation status earlier this year. So the U.S. has sacrificed, I'm guessing, hundreds of thousands or 500,000 jobs by giving other countries preferential treatment, preferential access to our market that they wouldn't otherwise have had. So partnership, when we were strong enough, maybe that was a good idea. But for the last 20 or 30 years, as our manufacturing declined, then that doesn't make any sense anymore. So any actions we take have to at least be as good for us as it is for them. It can't be us, taking care of the rest of the world anymore.
Well, it's a very true statement. We shouldn't forget the fact that we're the ones that actually created the offshoring. It was Bill Clinton who came up with his concept in the 90s about global trading.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And he got it. And now everybody's bitching about, we lost this job, we lost those jobs. The prices are too cheap. We can't buy our own goods because it's too expensive.
Yeah.
So
Well,
we did it.
Well, one of the New York Times famous reporters, Friedman.
Yeah.
Okay. And the world is flat and all this kind of stuff. And maybe that's okay if you're making a really big bucks writing articles for the New York Times, but if you're working in a factory in the United States, a flat world is a dangerous place. One of the things that makes me think about is the U.S., Mexico, and China can work together nicely. So there's that what we should be doing, and we're not really doing it yet. The three should get together as a team, bring back work from Asia, put the more labor-intense work into Mexico because their wages are sort of, $5, $6 an hour, $4, $5, $6 an hour, and put the more skill and technology intense up here. Because even the work that goes back down to Mexico, when they make, let's say they're doing molding, well, they're going to get the mold from here probably. They're going to get a lot of the chemicals from here. They're going to get a lot of the component parts that go into the assembly that they do from here. So on average, product that's coming out of Mexico shipped to the U.S. has about 40% US content, whereas product coming out of China has 5% US content. So that's a partnership. That's a win-win for everybody,
Sure.
especially if you can't get it all the way back here, which is what I'd prefer to do. Yeah.
But with Mexico, for example, we would really have to deal with the drug issue, which we've just never done well.
Well, the best way to deal with it is for Americans to stop buying the drugs.
Well, there's no fun in that, Harry.
I've never taken any. I've never smoked marijuana. I haven't. You could say I haven't lived, but
Try aspirins. They work pretty good. Harry, it's never too late. So we have Canada.
Let me go back to one last thing. You're
Sure.
talking before about globalization,
Right.
and I pulled a couple of interesting articles in the last couple of weeks. Two were like Barclays Bank and Bank of America, I think, and they essentially said the same thing. We have passed peak globalization. That the globalization, in the sense of making it all in one place, especially China, and shipping it all over the world, is past. That there's going to be less of that, less stuff being shipped all over the world, and instead, more companies will go for localization, and they'll have a factory in China maybe to support Asia, and a factory in Germany or France to support Europe, and one here or Mexico to support North America. Much more logical, much more efficient system. And then in the same gathering that I did of articles, a guy from S&P, like head of risk analysis for Standard & Poor's, said that if you've got a factory in China, you've got to think seriously about relying on just on that factory, and that bring the work back to the U.S., even if it has a moderately higher cost when you look at all the cost elements, even if it has a higher cost, that's a form of insurance, because there's a significant chance, whatever that probability is, of everything stopping coming out of China. And if that happens, you're out of business. And so are you willing to pay, for whatever, 10, 20% of your components, you're willing to pay, 20% more, which maybe increases your cost by 4% or something, to eliminate that risk. And I think most companies, if they do the math correctly, would say, yes, I'm going to bring some of it back.
Well, considering that 3 years ago, a shipping container from China to Los Angeles was about $3,500, and last year it was about $20,000. But now it's significantly less, but it's still about $9,000-$10,000.
I think it's lower. I think it's back to 5 or something like that.
Maybe.
I keep trying to bribe the dock workers to go on strike and slow it down and drive up the rates, but it hasn't worked yet.
Well, it worked once a couple of years ago, but they almost did it recently. I always like seeing the Taft-Hartley Act in vote. That's a real presidential power thing. Harry, give us your email address again for the latecomers.
So harry.moser, M-O-S-E-R, at reshorenow.org.
Great. Harry, any final words?
Yeah, maybe another form of partnership, since that's what we're talking about, sure, is do not let procurement make the decision all on their own, because if they do, they're going to buy on the lowest price most of the time. And instead, create a partnership, a team within the company, so that quality, inventory control, sales, assembly, everybody has some word to say about that. And then they'll go for they'll put less emphasis on price, more emphasis on availability. And so a really good article came out just yesterday or the day before. And I should have brought, maybe I'll bring it in next time. And this lady, really smart, Resolink, she's the head of Resolink. And she said, until now, companies focused on price. They wanted to get the lowest possible price. And now that's much less important. They're focusing on revenue. So which supplier will assure us of being able to achieve our delivery goals consistently year after year forever. And that might mean you have to pay moderately more for the product, but you know that you'll have it to assemble into your, for the 10 cent, 50 cent, a dollar, $5 parts that go into the $20,000 product. And if you don't have those parts, you can't ship the $20,000 product and make 5,000 in profit. So you put your emphasis on being able to get the things that you need consistently, and you'll make more money than if you nickel and dime to buy the cheapest stuff.
And quality is also
Of course,
ultimate
yeah,
point.
absolutely required.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, China, Japan at one time, they had the worst reputation in the world of junk. And Japan makes some of the best cars in the world.
No question. US got sloppy, what, 30, 40 years ago?
Yes.
And now, for most people that I think are objective, say the car assembled, like the BMW or Mercedes assembled in the US, people say is at least as good as the one made in Germany. So I would assume that the Ford and the GM cars are essentially as good because they pull on the same engineers and the same skills. Yeah.
Sure. All they have is different shaped fenders. Harry, it's great talking to you all the time. I really appreciate your time. And let's see what you're going to be doing next. What do you got coming up next?
We've got everything coming up, everything that a company needs to make the decision to reshore, and some ideas on getting the skilled workforce they need. Because once again, I'll emphasize the manufacturing is cool T-shirt, which is an important concept, so that you tell the kids that why they should go into manufacturing, because it is so enjoyable, so challenging and rewarding and cool. And we're here to help you get that message out.
And they'll be making more money coming out of a training program for manufacturing than they do coming out of NYU, coming out as a beginner accountant or lawyer.
Especially if they come out in English or history or anthropology.
Yeah, math is not a big thing for them. Harry, thanks a lot. This was terrific. I really appreciate it.
Always fun, Lou. Have a good weekend.
You
Bye-bye.
as well.
Bye, everybody. Yep.
Bye-bye. So Harry's on every month. We always have a couple of laughs and a couple of kicks, and getting some very wise input from a guy who is probably number one responsible for reshoring in this country. You would think that he would have a T-shirt that we could all see, or have a chair that would be high enough so we can see. But by the way,
I can stand.
There you go. Who made that T-shirt? Was that made here or in China?
Unquestionably made here. You think I'm crazy? It's supplied to me from this outfit here, which is do you ever hear of Mitch Free?
Oh, I love Mitch.
Okay, so he used to run MFG.com. Okay,
Right,
sort of like a Xometry kind of thing. And so he's a friend, and he sends me these when I need them, and then I make them available to the people who report their cases of reshoring.
Well, you have to order one more, and that's a medium.
No, it's not a medium.
No, I'm medium.
You're not a medium.
Yeah, sure I am.
How much do you weigh?
165.
I mean, I'm 193, and I'm a large.
Okay, I'll take a large.
I've been thinking about it.
Tell Mitch hello. I knew him from the days when he was with Thomas Register.
Was he there before? Okay.
Yeah. I go back a long time with him.
Well, Thomas, I thought was a great company.
It was.
And they were bought by Xometry.
Yes.
And that's amazing, the money that those people, they must have had $100 million or something to play with, and have seemingly done very well. So I worked there with Kathy Ma. She's a VP of research, market research, and communications, a very smart lady. So, at some point, after we work through the series, maybe either you should get her on, or you should get the two of us on. That'd be fun.
That'd be fun. I've had a bunch of Thomas people on over the years, and they're great people. I am an advertiser with them. They keep pushing me to spend more, and I keep on pushing them. They should be giving
Free.
for free.
Free's good.
Okay, everybody, thank you much. Tune in every week, everyone, to Manufacturing Talk Radio, and come to our jacketmediaco.com, where you'll see all 5 or 6 of our podcasts. All of them have to do with manufacturing, one slice or another. So, and you can see all of Harry's shows there as well. So everybody, have a good weekend, and we'll be in touch. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.